Okay, imagine waking up to find out that $500 billion, yeah, $500 billion in market value, just vanished from one of the world's absolute biggest companies in a single day. That is exactly what happened to Apple as we entered August 2026. But here's the crazy part. They didn't lose that value because people suddenly stopped wanting their products. Not at all. They lost it because they literally couldn't get the physical parts to build them. We are living in this fascinating moment where soaring digital demand is just violently colliding with severe physical constraints. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the realities of August 1st, 2026. We're looking at a world that is suddenly facing severe bottlenecks, and it's constraining absolutely everything, from the global shipping lanes that move our energy, to the tech in our pockets, right down to the literal air we breathe. So, here's our agenda for today. First, we'll hit the global shipping choke point, then the tech market divergence. Third, global fires and carbon. Fourth, the public health toll. And finally, navigating a constrained world. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the global shipping choke point. Right now, we are seeing some intense geopolitical friction points mapping across the globe. Down in the Strait of Hormuz, Iran reports it's blocked 2 vessels from leaving and turned back 4 others, all while launching drone attacks against American bases in Kuwait and Bahrain. In response, President Trump has entered the weekend weighing both military and diplomatic options for the ongoing war with Iran, as the U.S. blockades Iranian oil exports. Then, moving over to the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia has formally put together a 14-nation maritime coalition to protect shipping, while Houthi officials are stating their voluntary safe transit service remains free and they deny any plans to charge vessels. And just up north, a drone attack at Egypt's Damietta port is raising some very serious security concerns for Suez Canal traffic. So our most vital physical arteries are heavily restricted. And here's the immediate fallout. These physical choke points have a massive financial impact. Because of these vessel restrictions and all this geopolitical maneuvering, Brent crude oil spiked roughly 23 to 24% over July, finishing the month near $90 a barrel. And this is happening at the exact same time that U.S. crude inventories have dropped to their lowest level since 2018. The physical supply of energy is incredibly tight, and the risk premium is just officially back in the oil market. So we're clearly seeing the physical constraints in shipping. But this begs a huge question. How are these physical constraints impacting our seemingly infinite digital economy? Which brings us to Section 2, the tech market divergence. We are seeing a historic split in the tech world right now. On one hand, Amazon shares surged nearly 14%. Amazon Web Services saw its strongest growth in 4 years, up 37%. And they've confidently rolled out a $220 billion capital spending plan. But in stark contrast, Apple recorded its sharpest one-day decline since March 2020. They dropped 9%, wiping out nearly $500 billion in market value. Why? Significant processor and memory shortages. Despite record iPhone sales showing incredible consumer demand, they literally cannot get enough physical components to build the products to satisfy it. Actually, scratch that. It's not perfectly smooth sailing for the winners either. Even for AI giants like Amazon, there is a hidden constraint, and it's cash. Amazon's trailing 12-month free cash flow plummeted from a positive $18.2 billion all the way down to a negative $7.6 billion. Building out the physical infrastructure for artificial intelligence, the data centers, the cooling systems, it is incredibly expensive. We saw this exact same trend with Meta, whose free cash flow fell 91% as their infrastructure costs ballooned. It really all boils down to this core conflict. AI data centers and consumer electronics are now fiercely competing for the exact same advanced physical components. The demand for AI is so intense right now that it's literally starving other tech sectors of their supply. The semiconductor bottleneck was so severe that the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index fell about 20% in July, completely wiping out its worst months since 2008. We are learning a really hard lesson here. Sky-high digital demand absolutely does not guarantee physical supply. Okay, so we've seen how constrained physical components limit technology. But what happens when the ultimate physical system, our natural environment, hits its own limits? That takes us to Section 3, global fires and carbon. 18 million. That is a truly staggering number. That's the amount of metric tons of carbon dioxide released by European wildfires in just the first 7 months of 2026. Just to put that into perspective for you, France recorded its highest wildfire-related emissions in available monitoring data. So we aren't just losing trees here. We are facing a massive atmospheric constraint. And the global map of this crisis is expanding rapidly. Over in France, the massive Landes fire west of Bordeaux alone burned through 42,000 hectares of pine forest. In central Spain, fire-prone conditions are now estimated to be 20 times more likely. In Greece, the threat is actively shifting east, directly threatening communities right around Athens. And looking globally, Indonesia is reporting a sharp increase in potential fire zones as El Niño strengthens, a weather pattern that forecasters actually expect to continue into early 2027. The most terrifying constraint here is that it's a vicious cycle. As these forests burn, they release stored carbon, which severely weakens the Earth's future ability to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Let's move on to Section 4, the public health toll. Honestly, this number is wild. 400 micrograms per cubic meter. That is the concentration of PM 2.5, which is that microscopic, deeply inhalable particle pollution, recently recorded in Limoges, France. Just down the road in Bordeaux, they recorded concentrations above 300. When levels get this high, millions of people are essentially trapped indoors, entirely constrained by the air quality right outside their windows. The downstream effects of all this smoke are just profound. From a health perspective, these fine particles enter the lungs and the bloodstream, and exposure is linked to respiratory illness, heart attacks, and strokes. But look at the societal constraints, too. Employers are suddenly being forced to massively upgrade indoor air protection. For anyone managing outdoor laborers, extreme heat and smoke mean wildly adjusting work schedules, mandating strict hydration plans, and enforcing rest periods. It's also devastating local economies, as vineyards, resorts, and the broader tourism and agriculture sectors just lose massive amounts of summer revenue. And as a quick aside, we have to note that environmental smoke isn't the only thing straining our public health infrastructure right now. We're also seeing major constraints from disease outbreaks. Up in Michigan, officials are managing over 8,100 cases of the foodborne illness, cyclosporidiosis, with federal investigators expanding inquiries to 4 other states. And at the exact same time, the U.S. has recorded 2,318 measles cases, which is the highest annual total in 35 years, as national measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination coverage has fallen below 92.5%. Our preventive health systems are being tested on multiple fronts all at once. Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, Navigating a Constrained World. Consider this core insight because it really perfectly summarizes today's economy. The durable career advantage remains the ability to connect digital demand with physical supply and reliable execution. Whether you're a cloud architect managing Amazon server capacity, an executive trying to source memory chips for Apple, or a logistics planner rerouting ships away from the Red Sea, the biggest winners moving forward will be those who can successfully navigate these physical, digital, and environmental bottlenecks. Pure demand is no longer enough, you guys. Execution is everything. And that leaves us with this final overarching thought. We've built an incredibly interconnected modern world, optimized for speed and efficiency. But as global supply chains fracture, as the climate shifts, and as our digital ambitions outrun our physical realities, are our systems truly resilient enough to survive this era of constraints? It's a question every company, government, and individual is going to have to answer in the years ahead. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the realities behind the news.